Sometimes I have a hard time wanting to talk about the work because no matter what I say about the work still is going to function on its own, and I can't really justify or explain it. I can only give you a sense of what is behind my thinking that motivates me to make it. But in the end, I believe the work stands on its own, represents is something beyond what I can explain. For me, the work came out of a certain place in time, primarily the mid-'80s when I moved to New York, and I believe that art is very much about a response to that time and that place. And in the mid-'80s, I was making these circle paintings, which were basically about conceptual abstraction, where abstraction sort of wasn't just made for your choices were not basically just aesthetic. I think I was very interested in Ad Reinhardt's work and this concept of a perfect painting and what also made something original, and so I started making the same painting over and over and over again for several years, and then that led to making abstract paintings that were very systematically made or based on mathematical formulas. Over the years since, I sort of have reversed myself and made paintings that are somewhat very much about sort of a Zen-based way of looking at things, and sort of come from, are motivated. There's about a humanity in the work. So this color painting is one of my most recent paintings, and the thing I like about this painting is there's like a physicality to these pieces. It's like they're all on honeycomb aluminum. They're all pretty heavy, but they have this, part of that aspect is sort of like sculptural too. They're objects rather than just paintings. And the paintings are a lot, even though they seem very precise, they're actually, I always allow the process to show through. So for example, this is a very recent color painting, but I don't try to hide the blemishes from the painting. I was looking at some of my statements recently, and one of the things I oftentimes think about is that even though my paintings always involve rulers, I've never actually thought about them as being about lines. A bit more about a process where I start the painting from one point, and I repeat the act of cutting the tape, and then painting the paint in layers and layers and layers of paint. A sort of a journey, or I don't know, journey so much as a starting and an end point. And even though the paintings oftentimes are similar, they always have a different start and end point in time. So I always think of them as different. I never actually think that I repeat myself. Because the thing about the white painting is that in many ways it doesn't even feel like a painting. It feels like an object because you don't see any brush strokes or anything. They're not, but they are paintings. And I think that's one thing that I'm interested in. I do want them to be read as paintings, and in that sense to show their imperfections. And I think there's something important about having the objects, even though I try to remove the brush as much as possible, that they're objects that are made by a human being, a person, as opposed to something that's manufactured. And for me, paintings are more objects that are expressions of ideas. I don't think of them as decorative objects or anything. I think of them as more as I think of, at least with my work, I think of it as somewhat conceptually based abstraction. And the black and white line paintings, which are more optical, like this painting, they came out of a process of making a painting that would be so optical that theoretically would be impossible to look at. That was an idea that interested me in the late 80s, where you could make a painting that functioned differently than painting is traditionally seen to function. The silver painting is one of my favorite paintings because I think it's interesting having painting a silver painting on basically a silver piece of metal, and it's not a beautiful, perfect surface, but it's the subtleties of these lines, which is really just you see it through the shadow. It's just, I find this to be a very meditative painting. I do love this one.